And I've got quite a few that I've made already. Made kind of like a sandwich pouch here. And basically, if you open it up, you can see I popped in a bit of bread there so you can see. And basically it just kind of folds at the top and keeps your bread fresh. Okay, I'm just gonna take the other one. This one is kind of more like a small pouch as well. It's a little bit smaller, but I shoved in a little bit garlic as well because I have kind of like loose garlic that you use for cooking. So I like to keep them fresh. So I've got a wee safe keep kind of wee pouch for them now. So as you can see, and I'll show you how to make that as well after I show you how to make beeswax. So first of all, we'll go through all of the stuff that we need for the beeswax wraps. You will need really thin fabric. This one is basically a pillowcase, and I've got scissors, really good scissors for fabric. Got parchment paper, or they're called, I got this from Tesco's, it's just non-stick baking paper. So it should be fine. This is what I've already got done here. Push that down here. I've got the beeswax pellets, and you can also get them in bars. So if you get the bars, you can shred them, and it makes it easier for it to melt as well when you start putting them on the fabric. Just for a little bit of extra, I got a jojoba. Is it a jojoba oil? I don't know. I can never say it. I used to call it jojoba oil, but you know, that's just me. So it's a jojoba oil. You're basically going to put it on top of the beeswax pellets when just before you start ironing over it. It just makes the kind of makes the fabric a little bit more softer and easier to kind of manage. But it's pretty much kind of like an extra thing. You don't necessarily need it to make a beeswax wraps, but it would be good to have them as well. And obviously you will need iron. So we're gonna start, and I'm gonna shove this iron on so it could heat up for a little bit. What you want to do is basically just take a bit of your parchment paper. I've got 3 layers here, so I've got one to kind of do everything on. It's kind of like a little bit bigger than the 2 that I'm going to use for the fabric, and then I've got 2 here that I've already kind of cut. So it depends really on how big the fabric that you're wanting to use. Usually I think I would say about 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters would be good for this kind of shape. If you want it a little bit bigger, you can just cut it a little bit, you know, bigger, sorry. But when I start cutting, it's really recommended that you use a really thin fabric so the wax basically kind of goes through. So I'm just going to start cutting, make kind of like a nice square. And how I do this is that I've cut this part here, take this bit inside and kind of fold it that way. You can see that. So at least you've got like a pinpoint of the other corner. So you now have kind of like both equal sides that you can see. So I'm just going to go through upwards and then this way as well. I've seen a lot of people use pinking shears. So you have kind of like a jagged edge and a little bit of design. But yeah. So I'm going to show you the fabric that I've got here. So now you've got your fabric. We're now down to melting the pellets. And I am going to basically start spreading the pellets around the fabric. Doesn't necessarily need to be a lot, because when it starts to kind of melt, it basically melts in this kind of very liquidy state. So it turns to be kind of more liquid than I thought. I thought it would be kind of a little bit more gloopy, but it actually ends up kind of spreading around the fabric, so you cover a lot of bits. But if it turns out that it doesn't kind of reach the edges, that's fine as well. You can actually just keep opening up the next parchment paper on top of this and just kind of add a little bit more and then ironing over it. Should be good. I'm going to take another bit of parchment paper here and basically go over on top of the fabric and the beeswax pellets. Almost forgot my jojoba oil. Although this one's quite good because it's an added thing. You don't necessarily need to add it before you start ironing, but I'm just gonna add a little bit on top, and then I'll add more during ironing as well. So it should kind of spread with the wax melt.
Did you use any other kind of oil, or is it?
I think a few people actually use coconut oil.
All right.
Coconut oil is good. But apart from that, all I've seen is jojoba oil. I'm not sure if that's for a purpose or anything, but it does kind of, I think it's a lot to do with making sure it's kind of soft. So I'm gonna test my iron. I've got it in high, and on the highest level of heat, and I'm just gonna start pressing. I'm not gonna press any of the steam buttons because it makes the parchment paper on the top of the parchment paper a little bit too wet. So I'm just gonna start melting, and it does melt really, really quick. And you just basically want to go over each side, making sure you're pushing it a little bit to the edge of the fabric. As you can see, I've still got bits to kind of cover.
You wait for it to cool before you add the pellets, or
Pardon?
would you wait for the wax to cool before you add more pellets, or will you do it as you go along?
I think you can do it. You can do it along.
Okay.
I think it's best that everything is kind of in that kind of liquid state, so it doesn't set. Because as soon as you take the parchment paper out, it starts to kind of harden.
Right.
And it starts to kind of stick to the fabric. So you want to make sure you've got quite a lot of heat still there. And it's very, very easy, guys. And it starts to kind of give you that kind of nice beeswax kind of smell. It's lovely.
I guess you could always just chop the extra fabric off the side where it's not got any beeswax.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's why I wasn't too strict with the cutting as well, because if you have pinking shears, that basically just takes that bit off. It's still fine for you to kind of add. I'm just gonna just a little bit here, so you can see it's the light bits here. Just a couple of wax melts will do. So quite careful putting that parchment paper back on top of it, and then just setting on top to melt. And voila. That's it. So to check, I'm just gonna put this iron off. I'm gonna show you what it looks like. I'm gonna open this here, and as you can see, not sure if you can see kind of like the glistening parts of the wax melt still on the parchment paper, but that's pretty much how you would want it to be. I'll shove this to the side, but yeah, still quite liquidy, kind of nice and melted. Dry it out, either set it on a surface or kind of like put it in a hanger, and when you first make it, it's still going to keep that kind of stickiness to it, so that's what you would like, but it'll start to kind of feel a bit colder soon. But
Cool.
it is what it is. That's our beeswax wraps.
Hey.
So these are great for alternative for like if you have stuff or leftover food, you just pop it on top of your kind of food bowls and stuff like that. If you have like fruits and things like that, shove it on top of it and just kind of wrap it like that. But I'll show you how to make the pouch.
Can I ask you how best to keep it, sort of wash it or clean it or whatever you do after you've used it? You know, if you've got, what do you, how best to do that? Because I've got a couple and one of them has gone very, oh, you know, the powdery stuff has come away. So I've been, because I think a friend made it for me. I've got a kind of professional one, which is still going strong after quite a long time. But
Yeah.
how best to clean them?
I think for just a general thing, it's not necessarily. I think you can't use like really hot water. Apparently, I think it has to be kind of either lukewarm or kind of cool water to use on. But I've seen people use fair liquid and just kind of scrubbing it.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I
really,
think if you just wipe it over gently with some warm soapy water.
yeah.
And I think for
think
the
it
one
should
that's
be
gone
fine.
more powdered, if you put that on a baking tray and stick it in a low oven,
Yeah.
it'll just remelt it a bit.
Well, that would be a good idea. Well, it's too late. Put it out, but yeah.
Next time.
Next time.
Next time, yeah. So to make these type of pouches, really, really easy. A little bit origami for use. So if you have two corners here, put them together, and then you have a nice kind of triangle. And make sure you've got obviously the opening parts top, and you want to kind of take both sides and kind of fold it, this part here, middle, and make sure that you're kind of like equal on both sides. So this part will just kind of like sit to the edge of the one that you just folded inside. So when you've done that, open it back up again and take one side and open this part up. And what you're going to do with the other side is you have to shove it inside here. So you're kind of like tucking it in. So now you've got nice kind of like enclosed kind of pouch, and then you're not shoving anything in this part, but you're going to put it in this opening here. So you'll have a bit of kind of a close inside here. So if I demonstrate, I'll take my bread. You have a piece of bread or your sandwich, you're putting it inside here. And basically shoving in. And what you could do is fold this in there and tucking it away. So it's a nice kind of perfect. I tried to do this earlier and it was not a perfect square, but now it's a perfect square.
Nice.
So it should kind of keep your food fresh. I would recommend not to put your food first, just right after you make the beeswax. I would wash it first and then start using it. But yeah, so now you have a nice sandwich pouch. Even if you have like a smaller one, because this one is basically a smaller version of this one. What I did is basically just kind of open it up a little bit and kind of squeezing the other two sides together and making sure you're a bit gentle with the top flaps, and you kind of basically fold it on top of each other. So I'm not sure if you can
Little
see
container.
that. It's a little container.
Cool. I think when you use the beeswax wrap sheets as well, if you're putting it over a bowl, you can scrumple it up a bit and then it sort of fits better, and it uses the heat of your hand to melt slightly to hold it.
It does, yeah.
For the shape of the item, like the apple, for example, you've got there.
Yeah.
That might have needed a little bit
So
of a bigger
say
wrap,
if you've
yeah.
got, I think I've got a wee mug here. If you have a wee little mug and you're trying, if you have like leftover soup or anything like that, you just want to shove it on top, and it basically takes the shape and actually encloses it really good because of how sticky it is.